Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal, and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
Are psychedelics in the regard to, healing trauma, ayahuasca? Is this something that you have any interest in whatsoever?
I did it this morning.
Shut up. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You did ayahuasca this morning.
Yes. I've got some 5-MeO DMT right now. And he starts his panel. I'm walking out the door to come up and meet you, just
Sure.
so you know.
Yeah.
And George says, and by the way, I want to introduce everybody to somebody that sits in for me, that does the weekends, that he's been with us for years. And I just want to bring to the stage somebody that you all know, Jimmy Church. And I stopped, right? And I ran up to the stage, and he goes, say something. And I said, George, I was leaving to get coffee. So at that time, Coast to Coast just started. And then I found out, and this is crazy, the studio was across the street from my condo.
Wow.
Across the street in Sherman Oaks, where I broadcast now, same studio, and I can look out the windows of Coast to Coast and look at my bedroom window. And I'm like, shut up. Who is this? And Jason goes, no, man, that's George. I know his voice. And George, hey, Jason, how's it going? I said, really? Jimmy, I'm a fan. I go live with Coast to Coast in an hour, but I'm listening to you. I was like, what? And so we have this thing, and I hang up, and the audience and Twitter and everybody's just like...
Just blowing up.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I thought, how weird is that? At one point, I was like, I'm done with sports. I just want to get this UFO thing combined. So I convinced my producers and my team that we were going to change from sports to sports and UFOs. And they were like, what? How are we going to do that? When you first walk into the hotel here, there's 15,000 people, right? It's madness. Every floor that you go to here, you see a line of 1,000 people going in to see somebody speak. It's everywhere you turn, right? And when you walk in the door, this electricity just comes up your legs, and you feel this thing, and that's the beauty of the Conscious Life Expo. And there's nothing else like it in the United States, maybe even the world. It's that kind of place, and I just enjoy it. The suggestion of what is real and what is not, and are we in some holographic world?
Yeah, we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, therefore, nothing is set. Free will is a real thing. Ones and zeros can be manipulated, and if that is the case, rewrite your own code.
Yeah.
Figure things out. And you can do it. And if you feel trapped, or if you feel like you've got questions that aren't answered, you can go and you can do these things. In one show, I can talk about heavy metal music, one of my passions. I can talk about funny comedies, comedians, time travel, UFOs, and Egypt, all in one show. Why? Those are the things that I'm passionate about.
What's up, folks? Xavier Katana here, and you are listening to the Human Experience Podcast. Today we have the great Jimmy Church on our program. We really hope you enjoy this episode. It was a really fun episode to do. We did it live at the Conscious Life Expo. Jimmy has been hosting Fade to Black and Coast to Coast AM for years. He is just a really engaging, enthralling conversation. Please find us on Twitter at TheHumanXP, where we post some of the most amazing content you will ever see. Find us on Facebook with the same name at TheHumanXP. This is a phenomenal conversation. Really hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much. You are listening to The Human Experience. My name is Xavier Katana. I am sitting with the legendary Mr. Jimmy Church. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
How is everybody? How are you?
I am doing wonderful, man. We are at the Conscious Life Expo. How's that been for you?
Well, let me ask you this. It's great for me. How's it been for you?
It's probably not as good as for you.
How many Conscious Life Expos have you been to?
This is the first Conscious Life. Are you turning this interview into, what are you doing to my interview?
Exactly. See, this is the thing. Conscious Life Expo, this is the 5th year that I've hosted. We've usually broadcast, Fade to Black from the main Plaza Ballroom downstairs on Friday nights. And this year is the first year that we didn't do that. Bring in a portable studio, the manpower, the producers, the thing, 3-hour live broadcast, 15 guests, craziness. This year, what the Expo wanted to do was have me still do the keynote address on Friday night, but have that be an actual panel. So this is the first year I haven't had to stress out bringing down a radio studio, setting up in front of 1,000 people and doing a live radio, which is fun, but it's a lot of stress. So this year, last night when he asked how the Expo's going, we had 1,200 people in the ballroom, standing room only, all awake, all here to learn, all wanting knowledge.
Sure.
Egos are checked at the door.
Right.
Audience is there to learn. And when they go into that room and they look around and the vibe of having 1,200 people with an awakened mind, the connections that happen there, the neurons, the electricity, right?
Yes.
It's everybody is one.
Yeah.
And then on the stage, they've got David Wilcock, they've got Corey Good, they've got Linda Moulton Howe, William Henry. And wow. So the vibe that was in there last night for the opening night, it sets off the tone for the rest of the conference for everybody. So they walk out of there, with some knowledge, and they've hopefully learned something, maybe made friends, relationships and things that carries on through the rest of the conference all the way to next year.
Absolutely.
Because they want to come back and cop that same vibe.
Sure.
So for me, has it been great? It's been amazing, And so this morning, I was just down with George and his panel.
George Norrie.
And George and I, we were backstage. David Wilcock's missing, right? Now, this is what's great for the audience. This is, it was awesome. So George and I are backstage. We've got 8 people there. We're supposed to have 9. We're missing Wilcock. And George, being the professional that he is, him and I are just sitting to the back. Everybody's in front of it, and we're just talking. And I had said to him, I said, George, this is my 4th year going on 5th year doing Coast to Coast, right? And over all of these years, I've never had the opportunity to say thank you. So that's what I did backstage, right? Okay. That was a moment between George and I.
Right.
Audience doesn't see that. And they deserve that moment, but they didn't see it. So anyway, this is part of Conscious Life. So George gets up and says, I'm done. I'm not part of his thing. I'm just there, to be with my friend. And he starts his panel. I'm walking out the door to come up and meet you. Just so you know.
Yeah.
And George says, and by the way, I want to introduce everybody to somebody that sits in for me, that does the weekends, that he's been with us for years. And I just want to bring to the stage somebody that you all know, Jimmy Church. And I stopped, right? And I ran up to the stage, and he goes, say something. and I said, George, I was leaving to get coffee. So anyway, I said to the audience that I just want to share something that just happened backstage. I don't get a chance to do this, but I've been on Coast, now all of this time. And George and I work, and we work together, but days turned into weeks, turned into years, and I never had the opportunity to say thank you. And I just did that backstage, and I want all of you to know that that's what's going on back there. And I want to do it now up here, George. Thank you. And the audience now gets that vibe. Right? They understand that this is a family. This is not the celebrity or Coast to Coast or things into something that it is not. We have a genuine relationship with the audience. Am I making sense? And they need to feel that. So they walk out of there with a personal thing that they can now take that with them forever and understand that. So is the conference going great? It's going great for everybody. And that's what I enjoy most. I really do. When you first walk into the hotel here, there's 15,000 people, right? It's madness. Every floor that you go to here, you see a line of 1,000 people going in to see somebody speak. It's everywhere you turn, right? And when you walk in the door, this electricity just comes up your legs, and you feel this thing, and that's the beauty of the Conscious Life Expo. And there's nothing else like it in the United States, maybe even the world. It's that kind of place, and I just enjoy it. So is it going great? How's it going for you?
Jimmy, it's going well, but I want to get into, I've listened to your show a few times. I know that you've at least heard of me, but I don't think you've listened to my show yet. It's a little bit different. I mean, we have different topics, but I want to know a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes, because for most people, I think what they see is this polished version of this collaborative effort between you and your staff, and you're putting all this together and do it every single night. And your Fadernauts and the people who love you. I mean, there's so many of them.
Right.
It's an army of them.
Right.
So how long have you been doing this?
Fade to Black, 5 going on 6 years.
And then you host Coast to Coast on the weekends.
Yep.
And you mentioned the History Channel.
Yep. I've 3 shows now, 3 series on history. Yeah.
I mean,
I know, right? It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
You're doing so much.
Right.
For you, what has been a hurdle for you? What has been something that you have struggled with, if anything?
Well, okay. The growth of the show, I don't have to struggle with because it grows on its own. That's organic. The Fadernauts, thank you for mentioning that, because you're awake and you pay attention. The Fadernauts named themselves. Okay? We didn't do that. The things that have happened on the internet and everything, we've never advertised. We've never done any marketing, so I've never stressed with that. Everything is word of mouth. That's it. The Fadernauts speak about the show and the word on the streets. And is it the biggest show out there? It is. It wasn't at one time. It's that it has grown organically. So I don't stress over that. That's a beautiful thing. My stress comes from the proper research. So I have spent my entire life reading, watching, searching. That's my thing. I do nothing but research. Now, with my schedule, with doing shows every single day of the week, whether it's TV or radio, how is that possible? I still have to do things like sleep.
Yeah, of
right?
course,
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a family and a life and everything else. So how do you make time for all of that? It's tough. And then I need to satisfy the research. If I have 5 guests in a week, or 6, so I'm working 6 days, that's 6 guests. That's 6 different topics. That's 6 different books to read from these, or 6 different documentaries to watch, and 6 different topics to go in depth with, because and this is where you need to learn right here, for everybody that's listening to me, I do not have questions. There are no questions. Whether it's on Coast, whether it's TV, Fade to Black, there are no questions. I have nothing there in front of me, because I know my guest. I know what's going on. I've already researched the topic probably for decades before, and then we're specifically at a guest, and by the time I get to that guest, I have fully done my work. The audience knows that, and that's why the audience has grown. They know that I'm never phoning it in. I'm never reading down a list of 20 questions that is supplied from the guest. The questions are organic, and they feed off of the conversation as it goes through. And it's like the audience is engaging in that conversation with me sitting right there, because they can, when you and I are sitting here talking, the conversation's going to go where it's going to go. I don't pick out a piece of paper and sit here and have a conversation with you and read questions off of that. That's not a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The audience knows that. And that's where the fanatical thing comes from that you're talking about.
Right.
They know. So my hope and my goal from the beginning was, and if there is stress involved in doing what I do, is that you need to be yourself. The audience knows, they've been listening to me now do, 1,000 interviews, 2,000 interviews, whatever. They know my personality. So they know who I am. I'm not faking anything. There isn't a thing. There is nothing there. None of that is there. I am in one show. I can talk about heavy metal music, one of my passions. I can talk about funny comedies, comedians, time travel, UFOs, and Egypt, all in one show. Why? Those are the things that I'm passionate about.
Sure.
So when I speak about these things, I'm speaking about the stuff that I love. And then what results from that is my audience is interested in the same exact things. Like, man, wow, I like Pantera and I like UFOs. This guy is like me, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so once you let loose of that freedom and let that hang out there, now I'm able to not worry about 20 questions. I know my guest. I know the topics. This is what I'm passionate about. We got 3 hours of live radio in front of us. Let's rock and roll and have a conversation. If there's a secret, that's it.
No, I mean, I'm not looking for the secret.
But I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is when you try to analyze, as I have, how did we get here? And with anybody that is passionate about what they do and they find their bliss and they're able to do amazing paintings or play amazing guitar or act in films or whatever it is, or write code and video, whatever it is, they found their bliss. And you will say to them, well, how'd you do it? Well, man, the secret is I'm happy. I'm just doing, what I want to do. And so the stress comes from being passionate about something.
Yeah, I respect that about you. And I think, as long as I've known about, the Fadernauts and Fade to Black, I have respected the show and you for what you do. It's simply that. And if you ask me the same question, there's no way I could do 6 nights a week of a guest. I mean, there are other aspects of things that we're running and we're pushing forward. I want to know, before you started doing Coast to Coast, did you always feel you had a sort of talent for radio? I mean, you have a very radio voice. And at what point did you move into doing Coast to Coast on the weekends?
Well, where do you live?
I live in San Diego, California.
You live in San Diego. So, and down in San Diego, Extra Sports 690, big radio station. And back in the early 90s, I would, when I traveled to San Diego once a week, twice a week, I would listen to Extra Sports, and it was a great radio station. And back then, in the early 90s, when I was doing this, I would listen, and I knew I was going to do that. Now, that was 25 years ago. So, at that time, Coast to Coast just started. And then I found out, and this is crazy, the studio was across the street from my condo.
Wow.
Across the street in Sherman Oaks, where I broadcast now, same studio, and I can look out the windows of Coast to Coast and look at my bedroom window. Now, how trippy is that?
That's an interesting synchronicity.
That's a pretty trippy,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, sure.
So, and my phone number in my condo was 1 digit off from the Coast to Coast number. And I would listen to Art Bell. Okay, call in 818-501-3. And I was like, well, I need to call in just to go, dude, look at my phone number. It's 1 digit off. I'm across the street. And I thought, well, that's kind of creepy. So maybe we're not going to do that. But I would listen to Coast and knew that I wanted to manifest my own reality. And that's always the way things happen. Okay? That's it. You want to change your reality? Think about what you want to do. Think about it every single day. Practice, rehearse in your mind. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's car mechanic. Whatever it is. But if you don't like what you're doing now, and you need to do that, you manifest your own reality.
Sure.
Now, I've told this story many times about this very subject, about how this happened. So, look, this voice I've had since I was 2, so that I didn't have to worry about that. I knew that I had this irritating thing that bothered people. It's loud and things. So I knew I had that. But I needed to get the professional side of it set up. So I went back to school, went to school for broadcast, went to school for journalism. I got through that, got into sportscasting and did that. And then at one point I was like, I'm done with sports. I just want to get this UFO thing combined. So I convinced my producers and my team that we were going to change from sports to sports and UFOs. And they were like, what? How are we going to do that? And so we changed the name of the show. The sports show was called The Revolution. And that was a lot of fun. And we changed the name. We did all the production, and the show was called Jimmy Church Against the World. And it was my way of getting what I was passionate about: conspiracy, enlightenment, awakeness, consciousness,
Sure,
UFOs,
yeah.
lost history, Egypt. How do I get all of this and keep the team interested? Okay, so we're still doing sports, but we're going to do a little bit of the Great Pyramid of Giza. What? How are we going to do that? So I convinced them somehow that I had a plan. So we come in, we change the show, we get everything ready, we cut all the spots, we do all the voiceover stuff. I bring in the team, we do this for a couple of weeks, and we're all geared. We're now going to launch Jimmy Church Against the World. And at that point, Art Bell quit. And
Wow.
when he quit,
Yeah.
the opportunity came up for me to go to his network on Dark Matter Radio. And they literally said to me, this was like on a Sunday night, they were like, okay, can you be ready to go live on Thursday? I said, sure. Yeah, we can do that. And my wife comes in and she says, that's fine, but we're not going to call it Jimmy Church Against the World. I said, what do you mean? She goes, that pretty much sucks. And I said, really? We just did all this production and we're ready to go. She goes, no, we're going to call it Fade to Black. What? And that was Sunday night. Bring in all the voiceover guys, all the production, all the artists. We come up with new logos, get everything done, boom, 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 boom. And then we went on the air. This was 5-6 years ago with Fade to Black. And that's how it all happened. It was just manifesting your own reality. And then, so coast to coast. So this is what happened. George Norrie, I didn't know about this, is listening to Fade to Black. And he's listening to Fade to Black for his own reasons. But I'm on Art Bell's network. That's certainly, George is interested in what's going on out there, and the other radio host, I'm sure. And he starts listening to Fade to Black. And one night, I'm in the studio or doing the broadcast, and I have Jason Martell on from Ancient Aliens.
Okay.
Jason and I are friends, and we're doing our thing. And earlier that evening, Jason and I decided not to take phone calls, that we were just going to have this fun, organic bro conversation, right? Okay. And about an hour in to the broadcast, about 8 o'clock, this 818 number that I was just talking about is coming in, and I'm hanging up on it. Keeps calling back. Hang up. And after about 10 of these, I go, Jason, I got somebody calling in. We agreed not to have calls, but I don't know what's going on. You want to take this call? And he goes, yeah. I just punched it. Oh, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Jimmy, this is George Norrie. And I'm like, shut up. Who is this? And Jason goes, no, man, that's George. I know his voice. And George, hey, Jason, how's it going? I said, really? Jimmy, I'm a fan. I go live with Coast to Coast in an hour, but I'm listening to you. I was like, what? And so we have this thing, and I hang up, and the audience and Twitter and everybody's just like...
Just blowing up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, how weird is that? And a couple of weeks later, we were at Contact in the Desert. George is there, and I'm there, and we're doing our thing. And he came up and offered me the gig and said, would you like to come over and fill in for me on Coast? And I said, yeah, I guess we could talk about it. Let me check my schedule, man. I might be busy, but and that's how it happened. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. Again, it comes to like manifesting your own reality and thinking about things. The honor of the privilege, the honor is there's only one coast to coast. There's only one George Norrie. There's only 4 Fridays every month. There's only 4 Saturdays. That's it. That's it. And who fills in for George on Friday nights on planet Earth? And that's one guy, right? What an honor, right? What an honor. And so I will never let go of that. It is really the truth. It's a privilege. It's cool. And that and Fade to Black, which airs before Coast to Coast, all done by design. I didn't want to overlap the Coast audience, and I didn't want to offend Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
So all of this was planned and thought through, and it works, and it happened, and I'm still there, and we're on the air, and life is good. And so that's it. It's about, when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to the suggestion of what is real and what is not, and are we in some holographic world?
Yeah, we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, therefore, nothing is set. Free will is a real thing. Ones and zeros can be manipulated, and if that is the case, rewrite your own code.
Yeah.
Figure things out. And you can do it. And if you feel trapped, or if you feel like you've got questions that aren't answered, you can go and you can do these things. You can. It takes a little work. You got to sweat.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work.
Yeah. You got to be present. You have to be willing to work hard.
Put your foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah,
and not
you
let
have
up.
to.
And that's it. That's it. And so that's how it all happened. And I'm walking around this conference, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing. There's probably 1,000 Fade to Black shirts, right, at this conference. You're walking around, you're looking at 15,000 people, and you walk around and you're like, that guy's got my picture on his chest. And then just look for a second, right? And you look around and you think, how did we get here? And isn't it wonderful? And that they are so happy, and that they are here. And this family and this thing, and it's just, what a crazy ride. It's so much fun, and that's it. That's my life.
I love the story. I love the logistics. I love that you are so incredible. I don't think that you could pull off what you're doing without being utterly passionate and devoted and completely committed, because this is challenging. Just a weekly show for me and my staff is challenging. So doing it every night live is just a different ball game. You're playing, minor leagues versus major leagues. So, I wanted to ask you, sometimes I listen to your show and, it's all about these different topics, but I've never really heard that story that you talked about, how you got the gig at Coast to Coast.
That story happened live on the air.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? So I never really had to tell it. The audience got to hear it. They heard George call in about a month after when George called in, and he made me that offer, which was out in the desert. Like 2 weeks after that, he called in, and I was like, man, really? Okay. And I was thinking to myself, what is the audience thinking right now that is really going on? and George calls in, he says, Jimmy, I don't know if you told anybody, which I hadn't. I didn't go on the air and go, George offered me this Coast to Coast. I didn't. At that point, it was my agent that got involved, and I'm just, if this happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you don't talk about it publicly.
Sure.
So what does George do? Calls in. So, Church, what's your answer? I offered you the host gig. Haven't heard back, man. I'm like, what? You want to do this live on the air? Yeah, I do. And so this played out on the air. Yeah, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway.
I let you do that. I let you take over there for a second. But Jimmy, I want to know, we all have, doing this radio thing, we all have those moments where there's a guest that just, something's not vibing right, and you don't have to drop names. I wouldn't ask you to drop names. I just want you to give a story of an experience that you had where it just wasn't working out, and you're trying everything you can to get this guest back on track, and for some reason the conversation's falling flat. The Fadernauts are going nuts. They're like, Jimmy, what's going on? Why is this interview just going flat? And you're thinking the same thing. And
It's never happened.
I had a feeling you might say that.
It's never happened. The only probably there's one fade to black that went a little bit sideways, but it turned out to be okay once, and so it's not really even worth mentioning.
Okay.
And then there was one time on Coast, one guest, I'm not going to mention his name. He has
Please
not been
don't.
back on Coast to Coast since, or Fade to Black, that tried to take things into a very loud political Obama bashing. I think it was Obama. I can't even remember. It might have been Hillary. It might have been during the
Sure.
elections,
Right.
or the campaign a couple of years ago.
Right.
So, and that was very regrettable. I almost hung up on the guest and said, "Oh, he's had phone problems. We'll get back to him. Let's open up the phone lines." That happened once, but no. So the answer is no.
Wow.
So you have to. First off, I know my guests. We're booking. The guests are passionate. They want to be on. We are lucky that we have enough credibility out there that we can offer only. We have the opportunity to offer the best and the brightest. That's it. So usually, what we bring forward is something that is pretty dynamic, whatever it is. But now this is the catch, and it's pretty amazing. We have had a lot of first-time guests on the show. I've had a lot of guests on the show. It was their first radio appearance.
See, you're segueing for me now.
Right.
And
Well,
that was my next question for you is
research.
okay, yeah, the research aspect of it is
researching guests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's researching guests, trying to find the next gem, the next thing. Why? I got to go back to my own radio experience. So when I would listen to, it doesn't matter if I was listening to Coast, or if I was listening to sports radio or political or whatever I was listening. I want to listen to somebody I haven't heard from before. I'll still listen if it's Will Smith for the 50th time, but to have somebody that I've never heard before, that really catches my attention. So that's what I want to do with the audience. I want to find somebody that the audience has never heard from before. Why? Well, they get to share in my experience of that conversation, because this is the first conversation I've had with this guest. This is the first time this guest is presenting this information. Everything is fresh and new, and they get to have that experience.
Sure.
That's a tough road.
Sure.
It's a tough road to find and constantly look and look and look and look and look. I can only have Linda Moulton Howe on the show so much. I would love to have her 5 days a week, but you can't do that. Or Richard Dolan, or Stephen Greer, or David Wilcock, or Corey Good, or William Henry, on and on and on and on. These people John Anthony West, who just passed away a few days ago. I had these people on, Robert Schock. I would love to have him on all the time. I can't. And also, as much as that is really cool and the audience enjoys that, and they do,
Mm-hmm.
I think they get much more enjoyment from somebody that they've never heard from before. Some fresh idea, some fresh take on the near-death experience, on consciousness, on parallel worlds, on time travel, on UFOs, on Egypt,
So okay, I'm going to spin this around just a little bit, just because I love hearing this. I love hearing just the backstory and the way your mind is thinking as you're conducting these shows.
I'm going to invoice you later, though, for this.
No, you're not. What's going to happen is I want to ask you about, do you remember this lady named Nancy Leader? She's still around.
Yes.
Leider.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Zeta Talk?
Zeta Talk, yes.
Yeah, right,
Zeta
right.
Talk. Do you remember I don't remember what year it was. It was like 2006, 2004, something like that. It was a while. It's been a while. And she faded away. It's no pun intended. But I was wondering, for a person like her, she's pitching this end of the world scenario, saying, this planet X is coming, and then nothing happens. Do you filter out who you bring on in regards to that, or do you allow your audience to do that themselves?
No, I don't do anything like that on the show. It's a very, very dangerous zone to get into. And the reason why, I used to listen to her stuff, and others like her. But if you are going to predict something like that, it better happen. It had better happen.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, Marshall Masters and so forth, if it does not happen,
that's your reputation is gone.
You're messing with people's emotions.
Yeah.
And also there's a certain amount of fear mongering going into this. And I don't want to play into that. And also as a host and my audience, I do my research. And if you go and you look at these timelines with the Sumerian text, and certainly the way that Sitchin presented the information, Nibiru, on its best hope, is still 1,500 years out.
Sure.
Okay? It's not next week. It's not next month. It's not 2012.
Yeah.
It's not any of these dates. It's 1,500 years away. If we go back and look, this is why I cannot bring on somebody to talk about Planet X. I just won't do it. Unless they tell me it's 2,000 years away. Then we have a conversation. Come on, let's talk about it. Because if we look at all of the historical timelines where significant things have happened at these 3,600-year cycles, you can find them. You can look at the year 0 with the Star of Bethlehem. Was that Nibiru, right? That's 2,000 years ago. So that puts right there, that puts Nibiru 1,600 years out. And then you can back up and look at certain celestial events. And you can look at the Roman calendar, the Greek calendar, Egyptian calendar, Chinese, and look at these celestial events and significant things. And you can find these 3,600-year loops. And it looks kind of interesting, right? But they stop at a certain point, which puts Nibiru 1,600, 1,500 years out, no matter what. So my research says that somebody that wants to present Nibiru as entering our solar system right now is trying to sell books. And I'm not into that. There are too many, and this is the other problem with it. Every single asteroid, just about, every single meteor, every single near-Earth orbit, everything that has been found, pretty small, smaller than a Nibiru, has been found by an amateur astronomer in his backyard with his own telescope.
Right.
They would have seen Nibiru
for sure
a long time ago.
100%.
And it would be over with.
Yeah.
So my own research says I'm not going there.
Right.
So that's it. I won't do it on the show. I will not. I will not. I'm not going to be a false prophet. I'm not going to be part of it. I'm not. And it comes down to this world that we're in. Credibility and integrity should be paramount. And so for me, that's it. And that's where
I love that, man. I love authenticity. I love that you are just so committed. And I think it's a responsibility. You feel a connection to your audience, and people look up to you. They respect your judgment, and you're bringing this person on. So I can see why the research of that, the guests that you bring on would be so important, and why doing that 5-6 days a week is just absolute madness.
Right.
Is there a topic that, I know there's a bunch of topics that you really like. Is there a favorite of yours in this niche genre that you are drawn to more than?
Well, aside from UFOs and the alien question, my passion is Egypt and lost history, which is one and the same thing. So that's going back to, of course, Göbekli Tepe, which is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I think there's a connection there. But yeah, it's Egypt, and when you go back before the pharaohs, and you go before that, you go before Mene, and you go before Narmer, and you go to the gods of Egypt and the demigods, and what was going on there. That is It's just the most fascinating thing out there. Then there's,
Absolutely.
then there's time travel, and then there's, I certainly love quantum mechanics and quantum theory and the physics of that, and parallel worlds and multi-world theory, multiverse. Yeah, very, very passionate.
Yeah, and secretly, sort of, I just love hearing about that. And you've probably had Richard Hoagland on your show a couple times. Once. I don't know how you feel about him. I don't know why, but I listen to his show every week, and
He's still on the air?
He has his own little show on Blog Talk Radio now, and I feel bad for the guy because he has probably every technical issue ever conceived of that you could ever think of. He has that issue, and I've tried to help him. I've tried to send him a couple Facebook messages and stuff like that, and it says that he read them, and I'm just like, this is what you need to do to fix your thing, man, and it just doesn't get fixed. So, but for some reason, his ability to talk about these things that we're seeing in our solar system, this architecture of these pre-civilization, 10,000, 20,000 years, who knows how old these civilizations are, all scattered through the solar system. It fascinates me. And I mean, we've had Graham Hancock on. Have you had Graham? Have you talked to Graham?
Many
times. He's one of my favorite people to listen to because he connects so many of the different veins of subjects that I'm really into. Are psychedelics in the regard to healing trauma, ayahuasca? Is this something that you have any interest in whatsoever?
I did it this morning.
Shut up. No, you didn't. You did ayahuasca this morning.
Yes. I've got some 5-MeO DMT right now.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking at the center of Jimmy's forehead, and I don't think he's lying. I really don't. I don't know. But Jimmy, really be honest here, man, because
I'll tell you something really funny. Let me do this. So I'm going to go here, and then we'll end on this story. I'm going to tell a little story. So about 6 months ago, I'm at a private party on the top of a mountain in Malibu. So use your imagination. Okay? Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the people there and who the neighbors are. Okay, we're talking about top shelf of society. And so we're up there. And this person comes up. I'm not going to say male, female, who, what, but says, I'm a shaman, and we are going to have a private gathering, invitation only, in 2 weeks at our compound. We would like to invite you. Okay. We'll be there. So we drive back 2 weeks later to the same neighborhood, same general area, and we enter the compound. And we're driving up and around a 2-mile driveway, and we wind around to this beautiful home. Couple of Ferraris, couple of Aston Martins, couple of Bentleys, couple of this, couple of that, couple of that. And, I pull in my 72 Datsun B210 pickup truck. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so we pull in. And it is all that. And what is going on here? It's a room, not one, but it's a room full of shamans. A room. Very famous director. And some other, and I'm looking around, I'm like, wow. And things were going on. There were, without going into details,
mm-hmm.
there were certain ancient medicines that were being talked about and distributed. So I'm watching this. And somebody comes up to me and does this. Okay, this is from, This is made by old women in, mountains in Tibet at a monastery, and goes, boop, a drop on my head, on my pineal gland, right? and this thing, this drop, and this smell, this weird thing, and I could feel the heat and the oil, and I could feel it like going down my scalp. Okay, all right, so that, and I didn't even ask any questions. I just, let's let this happen. Okay, all right. Yeah, what? So about a half hour later, we're standing in the. Man, I don't care.
I don't care.
Here we go. We're standing in this circle in the dining room, and this director is talking about this project and the gathering of everybody and the blessing of the kombucha and whatever. Right? And I'm standing there, and suddenly his mouth, which is I can see him talking, but I just lose him. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, why isn't anybody looking at these amazing ass colors? This place is great. And I'm looking around, and everybody, and I'm like, wow, what was he saying? And then I thought to myself, that drop. It was that drop that went on my head, not on my tongue, not in my vein. I didn't smoke it. I didn't snort it. I didn't eye drop it. Went right. What is going on? And it allowed me at that moment to realize that everybody here got the drop. I know that they did now. And this is what it was. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. It was unbelievable. And we drove away that night. My wife and I were driving down. She got the drop too. and we just thought, what? That was nuts. The group, the people, I can't really, if I told you some of these personalities that were there, it's not that I'm not talking about movie stars. That was going on too, but different segments of society
sure.
that are actually open to this.
Absolutely.
There are politicians right now in Washington, D.C. that know what a 5-MeO is, man. I'm serious. Because I saw it. And I was flipping out, man. It was a great experience. So with that, man, wonderful. Just thank you.
No. Thank you. I really appreciate the background and that hilarious way to end this conversation. And just, I have a lot of respect for you as a broadcaster, what you do, how hard you work. It's huge. And I hope to, be there one day myself and maybe take your job on Coast to Coast. Maybe you'll go, Monday through Friday.
I'll call in your show. Call in your show.
We'll just reverse this whole story.
Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy, man,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Where can people get to, Jimmy Church? Google it.
It's such an ego thing to say.
Yeah.
It's jimmychurchradio.com. Just go there. Everything is there. So YouTube, Twitter, live show, networks, syndication, email, contact, future, past, that's it. It's all right there. Everything is free, so you can just go and the show plays for free. The live broadcasts are free. It's all there.
Love it, man. Mr. Church, thank you so much for being here, sir. This is The Human Experience. We are going to get out of here. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next week.